I'd like to call this work session of the Wilson County Board of Education to order. Members of the public and the board, this meeting is being live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. The public can also view the meeting through the links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website. We have two members who are not here at the current time, Mrs. Barnes and Mr. Breen. So our quorum right now is 5 out of the 7. Members of the board, we ask for the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I move we approve the agenda for the work session, March 9th, 2023, Wilson County Board of Education meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by both Mr. Boykin and Mr. Mercer, that the work session agenda for March 9th, 2023 be approved. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are here today to continue our discussions on our facilities planning, long-range planning for our system, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mills at this point for you to lead us in today's walkthrough.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, I've got some handouts that are already at your place with the slides for today, for you to make any notes that you want. I've also given you copies of the information from the architects for Frederick Douglass, and that's going to be part of the discussion today as well. So I've tried to organize things to allow us to kind of walk through a few things before we get into some of the discussions we've had and continuing those with some of the consolidations. But I just want to give you a brief update on a few little capital projects, just to show you where we are on that. Then today we'll talk a little bit about the field trip and the bus tour projects. And the architects have prepared some information for that as well. Frederick Douglass, we fall back up as directed, and we have information from the architects about cost structure for that and the size of the school. And that is the items in red that you'll see are those that we do need some guidance right away from the board on. Public school renovation funds is something a little bit new. We can share some information about that and some ideas. And then which goes along with the usage of the old Watt building, that the movement is taking place right now. They should finish up, if not today already, pretty much done. I saw a couple of trucks going out, box trucks going out today. That has gone really well. And as you saw from the tour for the opening, it looks beautiful at the new Watt, and there's furniture there, and so it's gone very smoothly. The last item is the one that I think will require some discussion, and we definitely need direction to get going to take anything to the commissioners, is some scenarios for consolidating facilities that need to go along with any requests that we make for new schools based on the conversations with the county commissioners. So that kind of gives you an overview. Dr. Williams and Mr. Letchworth, Mr. Woodard are here, and the architects are here, and others, Mr. Skinner, so we can go through if you have questions. So I want to give you an update on just a few of the capital projects very quickly. The tennis courts for Fike High School are one that if you remember, we've had an initial contract with Court One, and we had to terminate that one because there was crickets and more crickets and more crickets when we tried to get them to come out and do anything. And so we now have a contract with J.C. Lewis, and that start date is right on us. So that is on go, and the hardest part has been is to find, again, a replacement and to get on track. So I've given you some information about the tentative timeline for the tennis courts, and you can see that that's starting just next week, and then very compressed, and the only issue we're worried about is any materials or weather conditions. So far, we've been lucky. So just want to give you a quick update on that, because that's one you might get asked about as you go out and about. So again, that was delayed due to the vendor just having no response whatsoever.
Dr. Mills,
Mm-hmm.
when we have that kind of experience with a contractor, and we have to take an alternative route, is that shared with other systems, or is it, I mean, to me, I mean, if that's, I don't mean we ought to go on a journey just to let everybody know, but it shouldn't be something, well, we just had a bad experience and then let somebody else have a bad experience.
Well, there are conversations that we have with others and others have with us when you get ready to do work and you ask about, hey, who'd y'all use, how'd it go, were they good? And it's just general conversational things. The issue with some of the companies now is that there's just not that many of them out there, or the ones that do it have enough work that it doesn't really seem to bother them. I mean, we did follow up with our attorneys, and Greg and Mark followed up as well. But a lot of that is that, you know, there's enough work elsewhere at this time that it's not a huge issue. But yes, we have shared information about the lack of response and lack of follow-up, which delayed this project greatly. So we feel like this will get us back on track and get this done. So tennis courts are on go. The HVAC upgrades, I'll try to give you a little bit of information about that from where we are. That, again, those are ESSER funds being used to cover those upgrades. And we've got Barnes, Bettyfield, Elm City Middle, Forest Hills, Hunt, and Lee Woodard. And folks will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything's been bid out, ready to go, except for, I think, just the last little bit at Bettyfield's HVAC upgrades are going out. The chiller has been in place already before out there. That was what gave us coverage. We were lucky to get that for the long period of time that we had to provide service for the building. But as things have changed over the last year and a half, we've had to make changes in which HVAC projects we could do and get done and afford, because that's been part of the issue. As everybody's had the same type of windfall of funds that are wonderful, it's really saturated the vendors and the supply, and that's really been a difficult thing. So school systems like us across the state and elsewhere have had to kind of be flexible and see what was available and what we could get scheduled with the funds that you have, because it's been a moving target. But this is where we're headed now. So I wanted to show you a couple pictures of kind of some of the changes just briefly from the HVAC, and that's what a little mobile air conditioner looks like for Bettyfield. Not like what you go to Lowe's and get. They don't carry those. So we were lucky to have this to provide for Bettyfield in the interim, because there's nothing out there to go get. And our staff found this early on, ahead of time, so we wouldn't be without out there, because there really are no solutions when these things go, when the supply chain issues that we have.
So is this a system that we can keep in warehouse and reuse if, no?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, they're very proud of it. And there's not many of them out there. So there's there's the unicorn effect of trying to find one. And then when you find one, they want you to commit to a certain amount of time, and then you have to rent it, and there's mileage and distance and everything added in there. But for a school system to be able to plug and play something in, which is not so much plug and play, there's a lot of work had to go to get in there, but this kept that building going in the meantime. So I'm afraid this might be, there are some systems that didn't have an option to find something and put in place, so that would have been very difficult.
So are we now ready to put in the permanent?
We're right there at it, and so I'll let Mark and Greg and Ben talk about what this is and what it looks like on the next slide, but this is what was there. If you ask me to tell me what it is, I have no idea, but I know it has to do with cooling and heating, but it doesn't look good.
So we were renting the chiller, so we will now stop renting the chiller?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because there was nothing in place that we could go
Okay, yeah.
and patched it. Yeah, and so you definitely don't want to do that, but there was no equipment you could get in between to even patch in and what we tried to fix on the cores that we replaced so far on some of the other ones. So that was before, and then now we've got some new in place. So structurally, we're in much better shape just to build from here. So yes. Very good? Ben, you have any comments? Mark, Greg? Okay. So that kind of gives you an idea of a couple projects, but the ones that we really want to spend some time on today would starting from here would be the follow-up from the board's prioritized projects that we saw from the bus tour with the county commissioners, which there were 3 sets of projects that were discussed. The security vestibules for Hunt and Fike, the renovations for the auditoriums at the 3 traditional high schools, and then the science labs upgrades and replacements for the 3 traditional high schools. So you've got a report from the architects with some cost estimates, and those are estimates. And we're at a point where we need some direction from the board about next steps for that, to determine what level of request you'd like to make and for any particular project or all the projects. Now, again, those are prioritized to the security vestibules, the one the board wanted to start with. But in your information, you can see some of the outcomes that the architects have given you for scenarios of how you may want to approach them as individualized or groups. So I guess we need to know what questions you have, and the architects are here to try and answer any questions and get us to the next step. But we do right now have $2 million from the county to begin these projects. But as you can see, $2 million is not going to go very far for the scale of these projects. A lot of the estimated cost increases are the ADA requirements and some of the sprinkler systems or fire safety kinds of pieces that need to be added more so than anything else. So what questions do you have as we go forward with our folks here to help? Because I think that's the commissioners are wanting to know kind of what this is going to be and where the board would like to go.
All right, members of the board, it's, floor is open.
Don't any of these projects qualify for the safety grants from the state now, or from any other grants that might be available, both state and federal?
Safety grants, I'm not sure. There will be some to go towards that, possibly depending on the ruling. We could, I've got in there later the the renovations funding grants, or not grants, but funds from the state, that you could use portions of those for this. And that's the discussion piece later on for the board you could circle back to. So there would be some options with that.
So I feel like we ought to explore every avenue, grant funding before we, start looking at local funding.
Well, I know that we prioritized, and I would like our priority to be the security vestibules first, the science labs second, and the auditorium renovations third. Primarily because the auditoriums are not used on, they're used quite a bit, but they're not used on an everyday basis, such as the science labs. And we've talked about the openness and the need for the security vestibules. So if there are state funds or grant funds, sorry, that would allow us to tackle the security of the vestibules first in designated funds. I think that would be the priority, because you're seeing so much on the news now about some schools are putting in magnetometers or whatever it is to detect weapons and whatever. And I'm not saying that that's the route we need to go, but we do need to close off those those vestibules so that they're not quite as open. And I think that's our very first for the security, and then the instructional purposes with the science labs.
I think it makes sense what the board's saying about applying other funds before asking the commissioners. You do have some public school renovation funds, are about $860,000. However, they have to be used in instructional areas, so that would knock out the first two levels, so they can only be used for the science labs. And the labs themselves are $5.4 million, as it is right now. So that would start, but you're still gonna need additional funding. The safety grants, so far have been, under what we would need, which is about $650,000 for the security vestibules. So even if we were to prioritize those and apply that towards it, and you reorder the prioritization that the board's already decided for 1, 2, and 3 up there, then you still gonna have to approach the county for some funds that are pretty significant compared to what people may have thought, because of the upgrades that are inherent in going back and revisiting those sites. I mean, that's a lot more than I think what people think is gonna be.
Is that 600,000 per school or 600,000 total?
That's an estimate across the two schools that are on your list of Hunt and Fight. It's on page 26 of that handout. Again, the architects are here to answer questions, but
Weren't you referencing the 600,000 in grant money that he said, rather than the total cost?
I was asking him, he threw out the figure of 600,000. So I'm asking, is that 600,000 per each of those schools, or was that 600,000
for both.
combined?
Right, so, but that 600,000 is a grant amount that's what I'm trying to
No,
clarify.
the $653,000 is the cost of the vestibules, based on the estimates that we have. We have $860,000 later on for public school renovation funds, but that can only be used for the science labs, according to the guidelines.
So where are you at saying that 600,000?
Page 26 on the handout that you have right there for the auditorium science and vestibule study. If you look at the cost of number 5 and number 8, that's $653,000 for vestibules.
I understand and I agree with the idea that any grant monies or whatever that we can get. But would it not be, even if it's not in request form, the county commissioners be aware of just the magnitude of what we're dealing with and all the options we're searching for and trying to get, so that they'll, it's all, I don't want us to go through everything we can do, and when we run out of options, then go to them, because it takes that much longer to get everybody up to speed. And I'm interested, like I think everyone else is doing it with the least amount of local dollars, but also as soon as possible. So either formally or informally, making sure they're aware. And does that make sense at all? To anybody other than me? I want them, in other words, I want them to know
You want them to have the whole picture.
the whole picture. I want them to know it's gonna cost $600,000 or $600,000. And we're doing all we can to get it from other sources, but they also are players in the game, and what we can't get, if we're gonna do it, must come from them. So, to me, keeping them abreast of things can only serve everybody.
What are we making these vestibules out of? I mean, what is $600,000 about? I mean, I can build a house or 3 houses for $600,000. So why are they so expensive?
So, for a couple of them, one specifically for Pike, we don't have accessibility to that entrance. So we have to get accessibility to the entrance first of all, so that otherwise, when you make a secure vestibule there, you still have an unsecure area that you have to let everyone else in that needs to come in by some other means. So first of all, we have to make it an accessible entrance. So there's funds that need to be allotted just to get to the front door. Then we need to rework the front door, and then, this is just a preliminary look at it, right? There may be adjustments to the solution, but we need to adjust where the principal's office is situated so we can use that door to get into the office area, so we can secure how people approach the office. Just the way the school's designed now and working with the existing conditions, there need to be some other adjustments made to make the vestibule secure and guide folks into the office so they're not continuing to walk into the school. And so they would be made out of an interior, they're asking what they're constructed of, we would need, it to be made out of interior storefront. And sometimes these vestibules need to have adjustments then to the heating and cooling as well. So it's a little bit more involved than just putting in a door or a wall. There's some other things that are impacted in each of the locations.
So you're saying that you're gonna have like ramps going to
We
it?
would, at Pike, we would need a new ramp, yes, sir. So that's why, in particular, in that estimate, it looks, so much different than the other.
And this is just one vestibule with Fike?
Yeah, page, you don't have the page 33.
I can bring it up. I need to.
Page 33 perhaps gives a little bit of a diagram, but there are other items involved with that. That can explain to you why they are. But yeah, one of the things is you would have a new concrete, permanent concrete ramp with rails as part of that. The opening is fairly wide there where you notice the 3 steps are. If you pull up that sheet,
Here we go.
it's creating a new safety vestibule, creating a new entrance into what the office area is now, creating a new check-in, a new reception, reconfiguring the principal's office and adding a toilet. There is, and Alicia can explain to you the reasons or the purposes for all this, for that, if you want to,
Yeah.
once you start doing something like that.
And once you start, impacting an internal area, there's just a lot going on right there, that you're trying to accomplish in a small space. So we have a corridor down to another hall of classrooms, so we have to avoid that. So just in trying to make the footprint and impact actually as small as we can make it and yet get a safe and secure entrance. You know, and this is all schematic design, right? So this is just us looking at it and saying, here is the best solution right now. As we get into the details, something could move or shift, but this is a study looking at what probably the minimum we could do would be to get a secure and safe vestibule for your students that's accessible and for, you know, anybody else who's coming to the school. So storefront, you know, both exterior and interior needs to be changed out. As Ben said, the principal's office needs to be adjusted so that we can get into that office and reception area from the safety vestibule. You know, you let somebody into the vestibule, and then ideally, you let them into the office, they can check in with the Safe Schools, you know, system, and then they can proceed on into the school. Because you have a corridor there to the other classrooms, that safety vestibule can't get any larger. It's just the, you know, the way the original design was designed, obviously, we didn't think about this in 1950, right? When this school was originally built, so just trying to work with what you have, and then, of course, needing an accessible entry. So that a lot of times one impacts other things, and this is trying to create the least amount of impact with the best solution.
And then Hunt's on which page?
Before, I think,
30, or 36.
Yeah, it should be an alphabetical order. Yes.
So walking into
36.
So walking into Hunt, you know, y'all were pretty much just proposing the glass front behind the check-in that's already existing, is that
Well,
right?
that check-in is, I would call kind of a make do. Right now, it's pieces of, it's basically pieces of cubicle floor ceiling furniture. This would need to be, you know, something that's a little bit more substantial. And you'll still need potentially some heating and cooling. This impacts a little bit for some lighting in. Flooring, so just making sure that we cover the costs.
And that's for all, pretty much 250,000. And you're saying that that's an estimate?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah,
Right.
you haven't put it out for bid or anything, but,
What we're dealing with on public jobs when they're bid, and the amount of work and the contractors today, is we're, it's as hard as ever to predict the cost, you know?
yeah.
And so we're not really putting in anything in there that you don't need. And if it costs way less than that, it'd be great. We don't wanna tell you something that's gonna cost $50,000 or $75,000, and all of a sudden it's $150,000. And we don't have the crystal ball, and to be honest with you, the way the cost fluctuations are today, which are fairly extreme, we just don't know. But this does have permanent wall, permanent check-in. You know, it's not nearly what FICA is going to entail, given the present, you know, the existing conditions out there. We're not going to design anything any more than you need,
Yeah.
but we want to have everything that you do need in there. We really, I'd like to have a crystal ball to tell you, and the other thing, these projects are so small, what type of contractor is going to place, you know, a bid on this kind of work is also a difficult thing these days. So
It's,
that's what we're dealing with.
you know, when you said 50 or 75,000, that's honestly roundabout what I was expecting it to come in at. These numbers just blow me
So
away.
you have, almost $40,000 just in mechanical and electrical work alone for this vestibule. So,
And the other thing is doors, commercial doors are a lot more expensive than residential, and these have to be fairly heavy duty just
Mhm.
because of all the use they get. So, I don't know what a typical door hardware would be, several $1,000s. I mean, it's a lot more than you would expect to have in your home. And it has to be tied in with a fire alarm and the, you know, the A phone to get you in the building and all that.
What kind of glass would these doors have?
Excuse me?
What kind of glass would these doors have, or would the entry into that, making it secure, have a glass front door?
Currently, what we've estimated would be that they would be glass.
Insulated.
Like tempered?
Insulated glass.
Not necessarily bulletproof glass.
Right.
just insulated glass.
Yeah, the safety vestibule is one of those things where you need visual, you need somebody from the inside to be able to monitor what's happening outside.
Is this, excuse me,
Go
is
ahead.
this the only suggested prices and is this the only one that we're allowed to get? The estimate on what the security?
Yeah, this is not an official estimate or anything. This is us trying to place a judgment a year from now, whenever this might be constructed. This is not this is not like this is just to try to give you an idea of the potential cost of this if you were to do the things that listed with this, which was new lighting just for the vestibule. I think it would need some kind of heating and cooling of some sort. It's not there now. That kind of thing, but it's actually not set in stone. If we were to do the set of drawings and it's out for bid, we don't know exactly what it would cost. We're just trying to give you an idea of some kind of funding for it. And also, when we do a section like this, or a spike, or any of the signs, we have to bring it up to current 2023 IPC building codes. And that's where some things can lead to another, because we're bound to provide work that complies with the current building codes that exist today. And when these buildings were built, it's significantly different, to include energy codes that we have to follow with, and ADA accessibility, which everybody's aware of.
So back to my original question, is there any reason we couldn't get other, give me the right word to use then, since it wasn't, estimate? What is the right, proper word? Is there a reason we couldn't get another, is it a schematic, plan, whatever the word is from other firms? I mean, there is nothing that would keep us from doing that. We are not bound by this. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Mercer, Ms. Powell?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, we actually had a tour of the new lot building, thank you, Dr. Mills, Mr. Mercer and I did.
Sure.
It's fantastic, awesome. I didn't feel like I was in Wilson, North Carolina. I thought I was probably out in California somewhere. But when you said you were talking about the vestibules, I think that's the fact they have over there when you actually come in the door, that you can't come into the office area unless someone actually, I guess, lets you in or something, somehow. No, that's the impression I got, and I like that fact. As far as I'm concerned, as far as the cost is concerned, to me, to have that safety is just costless. We need to definitely do that. And with the amount, if we can possibly let the county commissioners, to go back to what Mr. Mercer was talking about, to be transparent and let our county commissioners know what we're doing, and what we're going through to decide on the amounts and how we're gonna seek funding, whether it's through grants or, through possible security, safety funds, or wherever we're going. We need to let them know that decisions that we're trying to make together. And I'll go back to what Dr. Fitch said about prioritizing the projects. I think the vestibules should definitely be the first, which it is on the list anyway. It's number one already, so that's something we had already discussed. And then two, the science labs, because the labs at Watt are magnificent. And then three, to do the auditorium renovations, because I remember when I went to Hunt for an activity, their auditorium, the flooring really needed a lot of work. It's kind of embarrassing on my part when I was over there, but I think that I agree with you on having, instead of having auditorium as two, probably have it as three, and have science labs come up to number two. on my list.
And on the topic of priority, I agree, science should be second, and vegetables first. Not only because I think the science labs are probably more important, it's all important, but, the auditorium, it appears, is going to be over three times the expense of the science lab.
What would be the timeline for, and I see here, if the cost of, assume the bidding for late fall 2023 or early 2024, what would be the actual, aside from the bidding process or whatever, what would be the construction time estimate to complete?
For like the vestibule,
Yes,
I think ideally you probably wanna try to get, depending on how school could manage it, you wanna try to get most done in the summer when the kids are not here. If you did, you'd have to have, the job priced by January, February of the year that you want it done. So you can get material, everything goes straight and set. If you wanna actually take a full advantage of your, I don't know how many days you're off, summer 60 or 70 or what, actually not that many. Being that it's the main interest of the school, or it may be that you can segregate that part off and do it during the school year, you know, by temporary access to the school by other means, which is good. As far as like the flight would take longer than hunt, just due to the exterior work, they may have 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks worth of concrete work out front, all told, said and done by the time they start doing every little bit with it. And then the interior work, I mean, they all are probably, if you have the right contractor, could be done in a 3-month period, probably. Some of these materials, like glass and glazing, can take a few weeks to order, that's why I was saying you need to have it done and ordered and procured, you know, before you start. And some of these materials, and we found out at Barnes, for instance, had issue with getting the exterior glass, for instance, and took months. And that's one of the industry problems right now. So that's the kind of thing you want to try to have, scheduled as best you can so that you're not starting the project and then waiting on materials. So I don't see any reason why each one of them couldn't be done in a 3-month period if they had it all organized with a contractor that would, be, reasonably good.
okay.
Madam Chair.
Science is a different matter. That's not renovation.
Okay.
It's
Mr.
different.
Boykin?
Yeah, with the vestibules, I mean, I think that has to be a priority. But I know that we're gonna be asking for a lot on the safety grant that's coming up. So, and I know that this was part of the bus tour for y'all. I wasn't up there at the time, but, yeah, the county commissioners have asked for it. I think you send it up the flagpole tour.
So that's in keeping with Mr. Mercer's comment is send it to them, let them see what the cost estimates are at this particular time, so that they would not have any surprises or lack of knowledge about what these estimated costs are gonna be.
And if they need to fund 1 or 2, and then maybe do another one in another year, then that's their decision from that point. We've done what they asked us to do.
Okay. So does that give you
Yep,
direction, sir?
it does.
All right.
So what I've heard from the board is to, based on consensus today, is to kind of shift 1, 2, and 3 to be 1, 3, and 2, but also to send this information, I'll have a conversation with the county manager.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would like to add that I agree with the shifting, that's not a problem, but I do not believe that we should send just one bid.
Okay.
I believe that, having a monopoly on, the bidding process, or on the, whatever the appropriate word
Words.
is for giving these schematics, that we need some competition there.
Okay, so,
Then what we need to do in that case is determine what expense there is involved and include that with what we share with the county commissioners.
How much have we paid the existing, the skin, okay, why not? I mean, why have we not paid them for these?
just trying to get estimates and just get started.
And these numbers, from what they were saying, they're shooting off the hip. So these aren't bid numbers.
No,
I know, but I still want to hear, but those are far excessive of what I anticipated. And they were not shared earlier in the summer when the county commissioners, when the legislature went into session and they asked what were we in need of. Was any of this shared with them?
We didn't have that at that point, no. Mm-mm.
Well, I still stand by the fact when you've got one, if I'm
You'd like to
going
see-
to
like to
buy
see
an
multiple?
automobile, I'm gonna
Okay.
get more than.
Let's see multiples, okay. If that's what board like, there's no problem doing that.
I'd like to say, though, that I understand exactly what you're saying, but out of relationship situation that we have had with Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin, I think as a courtesy to us in looking at where our needs were, and they know and we know that this was not a bid, but this is just an estimate, to give us some beginning figures. And so I thank them for the effort that has gone into that whole process of preparing this for us, so that we do have some cost estimates going forward, because otherwise we'd be sitting here again waiting for bids to come in for whatever it is and have no idea, and that pushes us down the road even further. But by them having provided this to us at this point at no cost, then it's a relationship situation, and I for one appreciate that, and it gives us a beginning point to have a general idea of what costs are going to be. And I think that the comment that has been made, that in this particular day and time, with supply chain issues and everything else, who would have thought that the cost of everything would be as high as it is at this point in time? So it gives us a beginning working figure to look at and to be able to present. And I thank you. All right, so Dr. Mills is
So we've got-
prepared to,
We've got 1, 3, and 2, and then there's, direction to look at other estimates.
I'll be honest with you, with it not being an estimate, it's not being something that we're bound by, and it's for conversation, I'm satisfied with what they've given us. I mean, we can get bids and stuff later and get the best price we can get.
May I ask a question from the, or I'll ask you, how does it work that the architect gives us this free work in advance, but was anyone else asked if they wanted to give us some free work? I mean, help me understand that, how it works in the process.
There was a selection process that went before the board of all these projects.
Yeah, there's,
There was a selection process that the board nominated, voted on, them getting this, and CPO got the draft,
right.
all that.
we just hadn't gone into the cost of the projects.
And that was my original question a while ago, was were we bound?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the cost of the projects, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not quite free.
Okay,
For our time, that we will have some cost in preparing
Yes.
this. Not big cost, but just some cost. And what, again, let me just clarify, because I think there's maybe a little misunderstanding here. we're a design team, we're an architectural firm, we're not a contractor, architects can't be licensed in contracting. We do our best to estimate jobs, little small jobs, given the current amount that we know, based on the work that we've got going, the work our competitors do, everything, what their prices they're getting, everybody's getting prices from contractors. All we're trying to do is gather that information, the best we know how, and to give you some idea to make sure that you're prepared and not underprepared when you go seek funding for a project. If we go low and you're unprepared, and then you're hit with, on bid day, a cost that's more than you anticipated, then, you know, we didn't lead you down a very good road there either. So, we're just trying to balance it and give you what we know. We could do the drawings, get everything out for public bid for these vestibules. You get a competitively bid, that's gonna be the guys that'll give you estimates. That's gonna be your cost proposal. It's really not from the architect. So that's the difference. If you want somebody, another architect to come in and look at this, that's fine, but that's, you know, there's not but so many options on these vestibules, the science labs, they're gonna have to face the same things as far as bringing everything up to code and this, that, and you're welcome to go that route. But this is where we are, and I just wanna make sure y'all understand, we're the designers, we're not the cost experts, we're trying to give you the information as best we know it. And we don't wanna miss something so that you don't have everything included when you go and do your project, that's it, really.
A better word to follow up might be cost opinion instead of cost estimate. It's an opinion based on all the information you can gather, but it's not going, you know, it's not a contractor.
Okay.
We don't have enough detail at this point.
As far as the design is concerned, I'm happy with it. I mean, the design looks good. And, yeah, I don't think that we'll really know a true cost until we put it out to bid.
Yeah, no matter who does it, you
Yeah.
won't know until bid day.
So given the comment of Mr. Letchworth and that we have already done that as a reminder to us that we already went through this, then we just need to move forward. Is that correct?
That's what I feel.
And send, it's still whether it's a cost opinion or a cost estimate, it still is information that we are saying we want the county commissioners to be aware of, to make them knowledgeable of, these are the opinions or estimates for costs going forward. And knowing that the final will be based upon what the contractors do in bidding and putting the bid to us. Is that the direction, do you want to, how do you want to have Dr. Mills proceed then? As we just indicated prior, and change the order of priority and present to the county commissioners this information?
I don't think there's a question about the priority. And, I'm satisfied with them taking what we've got here and sharing it. I think they should know.
And I am comfortable with the plans here from Skinner Farlow. Kerwin, I'm okay with it, it looks fine to me. I'm not an architect, don't know, but with all the knowledge that I have, since I'm on the board, it looks fine to me.
Right.
Take care of it.
All right, thank you. So as we move forward,
Let's see. Laptop one. So the other information, getting into outside of those projects is, stepping back to the Frederick Douglass project. We were asked by the county manager to apply for the needs-based funding again. That they do not have the current information up there on their website, last I checked, but typically the deadline has been in August with notification in October. But the architects are here today, again, to start about some of the design planning. You've gotten some information back that I shared with you regarding the reduction in design and size. And I've provided a copy today from Barnhill regarding some cost estimates. So I think the question we need to have answered is looking at the decision on the 80% design or any alternate to move forward. Because I think architects are waiting to finalize, to get into the design process once the board has decided that this is the size building, and I know that was the direction you gave me to go back, was to look at 80% based on the conversation with the commissioners.
That 80% had to deal with the
Student
student
enrollment.
population, correct?
And then the information you've gotten shows some differences, and that's why I've asked the architects to be here about the core part of the building plus versus the reduction overall and the difference in the square footage, just for the board's information.
Do I understand it correctly, if, when you decide, the 80%, as was suggested or directed, whichever the case, that's, the core part of the building, like you're talking about, would be for the full, capacity. And classrooms would be 80%, so that in later years, if you had to expand, you'd already have the room to accommodate cafeterias, multipurpose offices and such.
That's correct. And that's in some of the information from the memo with the, from Brad Farlow and from the architectural firm that has some schematics in the spreadsheets that gives you some of the numbers, the comparison between how they reduced the scale of the building from a student population standpoint and the differences.
Let me also ask, the building is placed on the property also. I mean, it would be foolish to have room to expand something, but the property line gets in the way. So the building's placed and it's organized so that there wouldn't be any major problems with that.
So the way it's shown in those drawings is, I can't remember which one was first, but there's a place on the site where we can add a wing on that would accommodate those additional classrooms. So if you look at the floor plan, there's a dotted area on the one that's the smaller one, and that would be the future expansion of the classroom. You would also,
Which one packet are we, I want
That's
to
the
look at.
memo.
Okay, it's in the small, not the one we got today, it's
No,
the
this
small
is the
one
small
that we
memo.
had received in advance.
Yep. It's in the,
So are you at A1
Yeah,
or
that's it.
A2? At A,
so A1 is the smaller version, and you can see right here is that's where the addition would be, that's that area with hatching on it, to the
Okay.
north. I don't know if you guys have that on your.
coming off of Wilson
Right
Street
here.
down where the little green footprint with the little hash.
So if you look at the second one, you can see that there are classrooms here,
Yes,
and on the first one, they're not.
yes.
So basically, what we need to know is which plan we want to go with, because the way it gets arranged, you can't just, each grade has like one classroom less, so it has to kind of work with whichever number you want. So if you want a larger one, it works out on this plan. If you want a smaller one, we'd have to do some rearranging of classrooms, because you have to take one out of each grade.
wings.
Okay.
But I think the big point is what you're saving is really only about 10% of the size of the school, even though you're reducing the capacity by 20%. So that might be something that commissioners hadn't considered, when they asked you to do that. So I think that would be something important to let them know about.
Can I ask, when we first applied for the grant that we didn't get, it was for $26 million. And the numbers that I'm looking at now are where did the 26, was that a figure that came like the, vestibule bid?
Mm-mm.
Where did the
26
26
million.
million
Thirty
come?
was the grant total.
Yeah,
So the grant that we had turned down twice was for 30 million,
yeah, it
not
was-
26.
yeah, it was for
But it was
more.
30 million.
Yeah, it was for
But,
more.
and it came from that 30 million, how did that, where did that figure come from?
We had a larger student pop, I believe, that was,
It's allotted by, well, it's elementary, middle, or high school.
Yeah, it was a maximum
So
amount.
that was the maximum amount, so we didn't have a schematic or we
No.
just applied for the max.
It's a very rudimentary application. to
Back
put-
based on no scheme.
Right, it's a very rudimentary application, just takes the
Yes.
counts and the numbers.
Okay.
As the needs based, was it approved in Raleigh for 2 years? And then needs to be reapproved, or is it something that,
I think,
Approved for,
if you're talking about, because we had the needs-based for Watt, and we had
They-
received funds for Watt.
they
Yeah,
changed
yeah.
that so we
They
could
changed it.
apply. There was, at first it was a moratorium for a period of time,
And then that was removed.
and that was lifted. Yeah.
okay.
And probably the 26 was the first year, the maximum amount you could apply for, and then they upped it the following year to a 30, or 30 to the second year.
And we're a tier 1 county, so that was part of the match and then the amounts.
Are we still tier 1?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
we're still tier 1, so it'll still be a 3-to-1 match. And-
Probably out with 26, may have been a match from.
Yeah, from when the
For the
first
year-
time, and
they-
then I know the legislature.
They offered more
the
money up
second
to,
year,
up
and
to
that's
30.
when it went to 30. Okay.
Mhm, yeah.
But we're still talking about a figure that's double that, or close to.
Way far away from that amount, even with the funding 3-to-1.
And as time passes,
It goes,
it's not
gonna
gonna
be
get
more
less,
costly.
I don't think.
It's gonna get more costly. In A1, our max number of students, because we changed our projected student count. What would be the number in A1 schematic as versus A2 that we would look to expand to?
It talks about reducing it from 650 to 530.
530,
That was the conversations.
right. So A1 is based on a 530 population?
What you talking about, you want to have to look? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
5:30, I'm sorry. You're right.
530,
Yeah, I'd look at that.
and A2 would be the
630.
650.
650, sorry. Now you got me saying 30, 650.
And the area that's down there that's the playground with the reduced size, that when it's, there's no underground, anything that would keep us from being able to go right there and start with an addition, whenever in the future it decided.
The addition part wouldn't be a problem, you'd have to rearrange the classrooms because of, who went where.
That happens every year in just
Yeah.
about every elementary
The
school.
site does have some challenges, but that part of the site's not the part we're as worried about.
Yeah, that's the better part of the site, is really
Yeah.
kind of where the parking lot is. There's a little parking lot up that way. That's kind of the northwest, I guess,
Mhm.
part of the site there, which is actually the best part of that site.
As long as you're not down near the bottom of it, you're, the bottom of
challenge
the
with
drawing.
Stream is the blue line streams that we're having, there's work there that cannot be done in a portion of that stream. It runs through that site. Portions of it can be, worked.
Well, if they're, Ms. Powell, go ahead.
Just a simple question. I know you said with the new plan, you actually eliminated one classroom per grade level.
Yes, one classroom per grade level and, I think
Little common.
one less, special needs.
Special
class as
rooms,
well.
yeah.
That was my question.
I think if you look at the highlighted, I think you're looking at it right now.
It'll show.
What's highlighted is what's
Right.
different.
It'll
That's
show.
different.
Right.
So why do we eliminate the special ed classroom?
Just because, you know, you take the whole student population and lower it. But I mean, we don't have to do that. You could say, no, we need more special ed classrooms. This is just, you know, the beginning, and the program that we have is based on sort of standard elementary school. If you think you have more needs, for special needs in that area, that's definitely something to let us know about. Because, you know, we could switch some of the things around.
Because in my opinion, I think that we, you know, I'm just throwing it out there, that we need to keep that special ed classroom. Because the need is there, and it probably will increase as time goes on.
And
That's just my.
you've got time to address all that. This was just about the square footage coming down with and the class size requirements and such.
I had to throw that out
I
there.
know you did. I know you did.
It's
okay.
something I have to do.
Now.
Troublemaker.
So what we're being
Full
asked,
population.
is that a question for everybody, Mr. Mercer?
No, it's right there. No, it's just showing one.
Oh, okay. So we're needing to decide about the 80% design, so that's
The-
between A1 and
Like
A2.
Mr. Farlow was saying, is while you reduce the student population 20%, it's a 10% difference in square footage for the 20% students. So core building wise, that's not a massive amount of change, but it is a cost factor. So just wanted you to be aware of that.
What was the difference in the guess in the cost of the building?
So this one,
Yes, sir.
this project's a little bit different because you guys have made the decision to hire a construction manager at risk for this. We don't have a contractor yet on those other projects. So Barnhill has been involved with us, and they have given their opinion of cost, and that's what you're looking at. That cost came from Barnhill.
Yeah,
So-
and I just gave you the most recent information we got from Barnhill within the last.
It's not based on any design we've done.
No.
We're not trying to do it yet.
No.
It's their opinion based on, there have been several elementary schools bid in the last few months, so they're basing it on, you know,
Yeah,
current
Barn-
market conditions.
I provided that as a handout. That just came from them the last little bit since we scheduled.
And I saw that in the email. Is there a printed copy in here?
Yes, I gave you a printed copy too.
So it's in
Right here.
this packet?
No, it's separate.
No,
It's separate.
No,
It's separate.
it's Barnhill, it's,
I like
it's the one
paper.
that says
I like paper too,
Barnhill.
so you know I did get a paper copy.
Ms.
There's
Boyer.
no way to put it down.
This one right here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, paper copies. So, yep.
Yeah, this, my folder not only has this meeting in it, I had the meeting that we had in November's notes in there, so I have everything together
Yeah,
and,
yeah. You need to get
it
your,
has not helped.
get your highlighter. So yes, that's in there and that's recent. I think the pieces of information you need are what Mr. Farlow just shared about the reduction in student population, yet the impact on square footage and the cost, or not cost savings, either way you look at it. And then the information from Barnhill shows recent trends in the square footage cost that I think you need to take into account. That's the corollary to that is. So, you know, that's new information, that's recent, and that's the impact would be, you know, 10,000 square foot difference would be different depending on what they're projecting now versus what we were used to building. So it does have an impact.
Of course, what I was thinking about is if we save, for lack of a better term, 10% now, what is it gonna cost us later if we decide we need to do that? And that might be a moot question. We'll probably be lucky to get the funds to do the 80%.
Well, I think what I was trying to include in the conversation you've had is if we're going to present this to the county commissioners, you've had information from the commissioners about suggestions to reduce the footprint in terms of the number of students. So if we're gonna follow up from that, then you've done what you need to do to show that reduction in the costs and what the difference offset would be if you were to address it at a later time. You don't know what the cost would be, but you know your square footage to add those back. And now you got some information from your CMAR to talk about what the cost difference could be now to do it either at a larger number that we started with or the number that you received back from the county commissioners. So my thinking was you want to share that as we share the information from what it looks like for the cost estimates. I mean, that's up to the board, but you've got several pieces of information in there now. So I think you've done what you've been asked to do, which is reduce and come back with some estimates from that. The question is, do you want to share anything else with that, or do you just want me to present this to the county manager for future information of this is what it costs to do a smaller footprint?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Boyette?
I don't see anything wrong with sharing it. I mean,
Yeah.
because as you said, we've done what we were asked to do. We have those
That's what I think.
between Barnhill and that. There's no harm in sharing it, but,
But before I present anything, I want to know what y'all want to.
that's
Well,
my
go
one
forward.
opinion here.
I got you.
Well, I think whatever there is to share, we need to share it because we're not in the boat alone. I mean, you know, the county commissioners are in the boat with us as far as making something happen. Or we're in the boat with them, I guess.
Now, our current student pop at Frederick Douglass is how much?
Pull up my file. Got it on there.
And
Trying to do it
that
without
is the
trying to do it without blowing up the
the
screen.
growing area construction-wise, housing-wise, is that not in that corridor?
No, not.
No.
Not really.
No, but
Okay.
it could, I mean, up the sprawl up the, okay, it's not working.
Elm City itself is on a sewer moratorium.
That's right,
Yeah, that was the conversation you had last time.
that's right, okay.
Oh, blew that up, hold on.
But with our attendance lines coming into the Wilson area, is that still, even with the moratorium in Elm City, there's not a lot of growth in that particular area, is it, housing-wise?
We're at about 360 based on that was first month, but the projection is out over the next 10 years or 7 years is about 480. Again, those numbers get a little stale, but their trends would be about the same.
Okay.
The issue you may run into, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit, is if you look at offsetting any kind of new construction for Gardner, Stantonburg area, then you could have some population shift from the Gardner side of their assignment area to Frederick Douglass. Now, that is a large geographic area out there, and there ain't nothing around, because when you think about those areas, they're just sparse. So, but that is something you just need to think about, but it's not gonna spike your numbers in a huge amount. But that's I've got that later in the slideshow.
So, Dr. Mills, are you asking us to choose A1 or A2, or are you just gonna present both of them to the?
I think you've gotten direction or information or guidance from the county commissioners of what they will support right now, which is a reduction to the 80%. So you've got that. And before I brought that to the county manager, based on what Skinner, Farley, and McCormick has given us, you got a 20% reduction in student population, but it's only a 10% in the core building. So there's some cost factors in there that you may just want, it may not be as much savings as you think, although it is savings for the core building now versus what you might risk in the future. I think it's worth sharing that with them, just from the standpoint of, we're not saying this is what we need to do, but just so everybody's got all aspects of the puzzle.
But if we make a change elsewhere, then some of that population may also come here, to which we would immediately need to add on.
It could, and again, that's the conversation piece to go back. I think you've done your due diligence to say, hey, look, this is what you asked us to do. you fund us, here it is, and here's this other piece of the puzzle, and this could happen too.
I think we need to talk about the other piece of the puzzle.
And that's about 3 slides in.
Well, I don't want us to be in a place where, the county commissioners feel like, well, if I'd have known whatever, I might have felt differently about it. I want them to basically know what we know in regards to cost and need and all those things.
Well, should we move 3 slides over and maybe that will help us
We move
to
wherever y'all
decide?
want to move, but I've got it in here, so.
Is it?
Well, let's
Everything you
move
want
3
to do.
slides over so that whatever
back to my
discussion
slideshow.
is there. We can make that better decision as to which one we want to do.
Which one?
What you fixing to put on the screen?
Let me do my thing. Just in that one. All right, skipping that. Let's come back to that then. Let's go into what you want. Let's skip that, that's all. All right, so here's what I think you want, which is a second new elementary school. Mr. Bork, know about where it is?
So what now?
That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
So we talked about this a while back, you got support from commissioners for a second school, elementary school, that along with the board's continued work on utilization and consolidation of elementary schools. That was the other part of the conversation. Remember, it wasn't just, we'll give you the money for a new school, tell us where you need it. It was, if you do this, and you combine over here and do these other things, then that's a good way to get there. So one discussion you've had so far is the Gardner, Stansburg, and parts of East Wilson. And that is one, if you did the construction, that those students could remain at their respective schools while that was underway. But the issue is, because I also could start while Frederick Douglass is underway. But the issue you have is where is the location gonna be or should be and all those kinds of questions, because I try to go to the GIS system for the county, and right now the school layers are still offline, but this one I got before they pulled some down. But, you know, that is a large, sparse geographic area between the Carolina blue down there, for lack of a better term, sorry about that, and the beige, and all those areas back up through there. So, and see, Frederick Douglass would be on up north of that area to transfer those students, and that is a long ride. So the population that you have up in this area is pretty sparse, because there's not many roads there. So this side right here could go towards Frederick Douglass. Then in between, you've got a decision to make about where to place the school, how far in to place the school, because again, Barnes catchment area is down in here. So, but you also need to get some guidance on, is it okay for us to start looking? And I don't know that we have that just yet, but if that's the case, we need to get looking now. Because the longer we wait, the longer it's gonna take to get started.
So even with the area that you moved your cursor to, that would impact Frederick Douglass, that population is not that great.
No, I mean, there's, some- I don't have the building, nor I don't think we should get into that right now, but Dr. Williams and I are getting ready to get a data file sent to the company we're working with to allow us to do some of our own kind of assignment work on the fly that I've used before that would show kind of student distribution. But, I mean, you gotta live where a road is. So if you look at this map, this is where some of your population centers are gonna be, and they're very isolated on this side of the county. There's not that many roads for houses in these areas. So that's a long ride from here, where the Gardner's is about right about here, from here all the way out Frederick Douglass, and same thing for Stansburg. So you're gonna have to find somewhere equidistant if you're gonna consolidate those two schools into a newer elementary school. But I think what we need to find is, what are the county commissioners' wishes in terms of us to start finding land? Because that area is starting to develop in some industrial sections in some neighborhoods, especially back towards Stansburg. There's some back right on the edge of town. They're going, I mean, already gone up, and there's more coming.
Well, if that population is not looking currently to grow, and given our current numbers at Elm City, at Frederick Douglass, then we could very easily go with the A1, which would give that reduction, and give the option down the road of expanding to the A2 scenario.
You could do either one of those and be safe right now, and probably for the next little bit. The question is of the growth that's coming in the eastern part of the county. I mean, it's far enough out right now. It's isolated to the schools way out. And it's on the other side of Stansburg, the other side of Gardner's. But as we've seen the projections, they're just kind of okay over time so you've got some breathing room, but it's not gonna do you much good to try and talk about buying land if we don't do some consolidation somewhere else. And so part of the consolidation could be those schools combining with some other locations. Like I've got a scenario that you could just mathematically or conceptually seems to work, but that's not my decision. But if you look at I've showed you pictures of Stansburg. There's some spots out there. There's some work that needs to be done. So it's coming. Your bill's coming due to take care of that. But that's the one area where there's nothing in between or towards the city where there's any ability to take over any capacity that does come.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I need to understand what you are suggesting a little better. Okay, show me with the cursor approximately where Gardner's is.
I think Gardner's back out
Okay,
here.
so, yes, and now go down to where,
Stansburg's back around.
Stansburg.
Mhm.
So one possibility would be to combine those, that's, right now is at 232 and 192, so 424, about 450, a school for 450. Okay, somewhere in the middle, so
Or
we're
does it
considering that. And whether we want to ask the county commissioners to start looking for land out there. Of course, that's gonna depend on what prices everything else comes.
You got it.
But anyway, and what other, are you saying another possibility?
I've got, what I want to do is show you, well, we jumped all around, so I'm good with it. I'll just show you. There's some consolidations you could do that would offset some of this, depending on where you want to put a school. And let me show you what I mean. And just, again, this is just talking, right? So if you had, get my presentation. Hold on, this lag. There it goes. All right, you could look at using Spate as a K-8 school, and Stansburg can fit inside of Spate as we know it today. You could have Spate and Stansburg in one building. Okay, you know you need to do some work at Stansburg. There's 186 students out there right now. Thereabouts, that's the first month or so. Spate, there's about 300. That building is built for at least 500. Now, you got class size requirements and all that. I'm not going into all the details. But that is a brand-new building in our sense. It's not brand new.
Right.
But it's a much newer building. It's in that area, and it's underutilized. Now, there's ways to do that that would be amenable to how do you use your buildings to their fullest extent. This is a much better building for them to be in. All those things being equal. And in the meantime, that would allow you to say we've consolidated and done some things, and here's our next step. I'm not saying it's right or wrong
It's
about how to
just
do
another
this, but
option.
you're sitting there with a newer building with lots of capacity that's a fraction of usage. That if it were me looking at it, I'd be like, well, why didn't you take a look at this? It's right down the road and it's brand new, you've got a lot of stuff and you got a big campus area, there's things you could do instead of where we're landlocked out here and way far away, that's always gonna be way far away. Great place, that's not the issue. The issue is, in the future, where are you gonna have capacity to expand? You can't where you are in Stansburg, you're landlocked. And then right down the road, you got this nice school and, you
And
know,
they- and they have
and the
the,
duplications of things and all, yes, people gonna ask that, the efficiency, all those kinds of things.
but they have the capacity with that campus to,
Their core buildings can handle that. They were built for that. All those new middle schools
were built for.
back when I was younger and thinner and had more hair, had the capacity to do that. I mean,
Right.
you got Darden, Springfield, Spade. I mean, those were all built on that same footprint. So they can handle some of that from a core standpoint.
And your bus routes are gonna be the
Logistics of
same.
bus
Yeah,
routes will be the
bus routes
same.
is-
All those kinds of things.
We just-
Again, the issue is, okay, it's a K-8 school. There's, a lot of time we got away from that, but you have an issue with capacity and buildings and funding. This may be how you start to do some things without having to spend a lot of time and construction dollars on something that would allow you to go ahead and do this, that would add, you could show the commissioners and others, look, we've done this, we need this. Because you're gonna, at some point, you're spending the money that we're having to ask for, that's a lot better usage for facility-wise.
And what would you do with Gardner's?
Gardeners,
Because we have
Then-
had conversation of a consolidation.
then Gardeners, again, that goes back to the conversation we had before. If you were gonna look at Frederick Douglass as the additional capacity, Gardeners, a lot of those, we'd have to go back and look, but that capacity could go that way towards the new Frederick Douglass, depending on where folks live and all. I mean, sure, there's gonna be some impacts and you wanna take a look at that, but all these things are conjoined, if you will, but that's where I think that you're gonna need to make some decisions now, the next little bit, that's gonna affect some of your building. I mean, it's open for discussion, but I think the K-8 model is utilizing your facilities in a much more efficient manner, and students would be in a newer building. Again, bus routes, Ms. Boyd is correct, that there's power in that as well, but, I think if you do that, you gotta have a look over at Gardner's and Frederick Douglass at the same time, just to kinda eyeball and see where the students live and the bus routes and the distance. But now's the time to do it, but you need to do it real quick.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
remind me where Gardner's goes to middle school? Did they all go, where,
I think Gardner's
They
goes
go-
Spade though.
that's what I thought. So it's not like it's,
It's almost a clean feeder if it's not a clean feeder,
okay,
yeah.
that's,
There's some spots, but it won't be much.
but, in other words, it's not like it's halfway across,
No,
okay.
but again, it's changed and it's different, but there's ways to look at that. But again, those buildings, again, were built to be built off the wings as it is and come out that way. They're already footprinted to do that.
So if those students at Gardner's go to Spate as a middle, we would still have the capacity to make Spate become a K-8?
You do now. I mean, you got 300 kids at Spate right now.
Okay, but
It's
that's the
built.
current,
But
but
it-
then we could expand the capacity by adding a wing
I
if
remember,
necessary.
I remember
if it's-
Spate being 700, 600, 700 at one time.
Yeah,
So I mean, it was full, but it was built to be full. So what we got for Gardner's is, I'm gonna blow my thing up doing it, not as many, and the projections you have is that's not growing exponentially. I think that's doable. And I don't think it'd be a stretch where it felt like you were crowded up in the classroom and everything. It's such a wide hallways, common areas are good. It's built to be handling middle school kids, so there's a little bit more space in some of the common areas. But that's also manageable from a, kindergarten standpoint, classrooms and being in a school with 8th graders. That's been done a lot. I mean, that's not an uncommon thing to do, especially in the larger urban areas. There was a time when there was a lot of K8, K7 schools around us.
Yes.
In fact, isn't that a trend almost, once we?
They're using the
trend
buildings.
Nationally to go
To go back
to.
to the K-8 from the middle school concept.
Mhm.
I mean, doing this is more of an assignment issue than a construction issue. I mean, this is doable very quickly.
And now I'm asking this, so gardeners could, since they go there to middle school anyway, they could conceivably go to not just Stantonsburg, but gardeners as well, and then perhaps have, I mean.
Gardeners
I
go to
know
state?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're already in their count in that sense. Both of these are in their count.
So what she's saying is, if we look at Stantonsburg and Gardner's going into the Spate school, then
We need to go back, we can go back and look at the forecast and do the assignment layers and speed ahead and see what the numbers look like. We can do that. To make sure the assignments work, yeah.
Right, and the place that was that's closest to Frederick Douglass, even up to 100 kids could
Could go.
still, in the 7-year forecast, could still go.
You've
to
got
the-
enough capacity at both
A1,
right, both right now as they're configured. And again, the only issue you're gonna run into with gardeners going that way would be if they're closer to Frederick Douglass, they're gonna be going to Toys Not for a little bit
No.
because of construction.
Oh, gotcha.
because
Yeah,
the toys,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
Frederick
Don't
Douglass
be-
would be
yeah.
going, yeah.
They're following the
Flood my
bouncing
mind.
ball.
Yeah.
But yes, that's, we can look at that with the software that we have in transportation and what Dr. Williams and I are working to get configured now. It allows us to do just that on the fly, so we can see that and answer that. But yes, that's manageable.
And it maximizes the current capacity of our schools.
And you would have 2 schools then that are not under construction that we don't need for the capacity. But you could say that you've utilized these existing buildings in a different way. You've dealt with 2 campuses that have some commonalities, and then you could articulate the fact that we've done these things, and now we'd like to look at something else.
And with the 81, how many million what, 81 million was it? Anyway, with the tremendous
Bunch of
needs
cash.
we have,
Bunch of cash, yes.
we have helped so many things.
There are things the board could do that would not be of expensive transitions for construction or take a long period of time. They would impact families. It would have to be conversations, and it would be change. But in the long run, those funds that you're asking for from the commissioners would go towards other projects that we need elsewhere. You're using your buildings, and no one can say you weren't being economical and creative and strategic with what you're using facilities for. And I think that would make it much more difficult to say, this doesn't make sense, why are you asking for this? Because you've done what you were asked to do, which is you utilize your buildings to serve more students in a different way and freed up funds for not needing a new building. You could free up funds for other things we need. But it will be change. There's no doubt about that, it'll be change. But we can look at those scenarios and be pretty accurate with the impacts, but, I mean, that's one that's right there, that's very, very doable very quickly.
So give me a ballpark of, if we look at gardeners moving into Spate, and I know that some would be closer to Frederick Douglass, would that still 3, 4, that would put them a little over capacity.
We need to look and see how where folks live and, what grade levels as well, to talk about that one. You've got some capacity, even though it says 500, you've got a plus or minus effect with
Okay,
some of the buildings, but when you start getting into restrooms and cafeteria and things like that, that's where your core holds you back. But those buildings were built with some buffer, all of them are. But what we don't have now that we did when we built those buildings, because I was here and that was really, I mean, that was a tremendous time, is the class size requirements are stringent now. There is no
Yes.
buffer of plus or minus anything. You have to be on the money. So back in the day, for the older folks in the room, if you were within your district average, you could be plus or minus 3, whatever, and so you had a little wiggle room. You don't have that now. So it makes it a little more difficult from a class size and physical class capacity to do that. I mean, again, there's creative ways to do it, but I don't think the board wants to open and transfer students to another building and then have kids and teachers in common areas doing that because of the
No.
requirements. That's not gonna go well.
no.
So that's something we need to look at to make sure and to be hold back a little bit as we go. But we could come back with that information. Transportation has the students mapped to physical addresses, which, that's what you need, and you'll be able to geocode back to that.
So
But again, the issue is the board okay with that concept? And from what I'm hearing, you are. So we can bring that back quickly and look at it, but again, that shows some commitment to the utilization piece you've been charged with doing. And it may allow for you to have a different conversation about Frederick Douglass.
So does the conversation that Dr. Mills just entered into help us as a board to decide about the 80% design that we needed to consider, so that we're looking at the A1 and the A2 designs? A1 being 530 students and A2 being 650, I believe it was.
How many are currently there at Frederick Douglass?
3-something.
360.
I want to say 330, I know it was wrong.
It's 952 last week. I'm serious.
Be quiet.
Yeah, it's 360, and it says we're at 75% capacity.
I believe. That's really weird. That's not.
Yes,
Okay, my thinking was we were going to present the A1 because that's what we were charged to do. But then we were also going to present the A2 just so they would see
Have
the
the
two different
information.
models. So we're not choosing between them, we're just saying.
just
think that's
saying what the
probably-
option, okay.
That's a good way
I
to
think
frame
before
that.
he mentioned this scenario, I think it was because we may be cutting population by 20%, but size of the building by 10%.
And that's what architects have
Is it really
provided.
worth that difference? But with this into play, I think this is probably will lead us to the right thing.
So what is your, how do you want to move forward? And if we're going to present this information to the county commissioners so that they can see what it is that we are seeing, are we in need of scheduling a joint meeting
No.
again, or just presenting, giving them,
I think-
sharing this information with them?
I think I can share the information, but I'd like to go back and look at some of the assignment layers for the students for the elementary and the Gardner side to be able to give you some more definite numbers. But I can have that conversation with the county manager and
Okay.
present this information and that information in conjunction with what you're requesting.
Okay.
I think that's really ultimately where you're gonna be with what you need to share anyway, because that's changed too.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
And before any of this, this is just all preliminary
This is all
because there will be
conversational.
public hearings and
Yes.
all of those things
And,
before.
and again, you're talking about we're in March, so this is not something that needs to happen right now, because there's still planning and things need to go, but you're in a good spot to do this with the start of the construction of Frederick Douglass and the timelines. The architects are the ones that really need to know about the scale of the building, because they're sitting on go. So if it's, for some reason, the commissioners say, let's go with option 2, then they need to know that like now.
Okay.
So that was my concern.
So that's your charge, is to
I will
have that
quickly-
conversation with the county
Quickly
manager?
present that, but what I'm hearing the board say is, unless there's some big change, then we're looking at the reduction piece.
Well, whichever it is.
But I'll share the need for, speed, if you will, with the county manager.
But whichever it is,
They're very
isn't,
quick.
isn't the time important? Because if we're going to in fact be able to start on Frederick Douglass,
We're talking about demolition starting as soon as school's out.
that's what I'm talking
But
about.
the architects have tons of work to
And
do.
the movement of students and preparation at Torresville.
Yeah. But the architect's work is, they can't do anything till they get design done. They need to know what we want to do the design.
Okay, so how do we proceed now? Do you
I'm
want to
gonna meet with the
continue?
county manager and
Okay.
share all this
All right.
and start the conversation, but the conversation needs to be really quick on the first part of what the commissioners think about the Frederick Douglass
Okay,
information that you received today, so I can do that quickly.
so are you now looking to complete whatever, all these handouts in your slide presentation now?
I've got
Or
it.
are we gonna stop at this point?
I got
now?
one more I can share with you.
All right.
Actually, there's a couple more, but I'd like to go ahead and share this one while I got you.
All right,
Deal? Okay.
Go
well,
for it.
All right, so, let's see where I am on things. All right, how about this one? So you just looked at K-8 school, and you're talking about needing another elementary school. But one thing we do need is some capacity in the city for the future. And you've got Hearn, which is landlocked on a very small lot. In fact, I can't even see, the GIS system doesn't even reflect the acreage. It's just blank. But Wells is on a site with 16 acres. And you could actually combine Hearn and Wells into a new elementary school right there on that site. Again, it's tight, and there's things you'd have to deal with that are beyond my capacity, because I am not an architect. I can't even draw a straight line or read a tape measure. And there are people in this room that will attest to that every day. So the capacity issues, it's gonna be a bigger elementary school based on the assignment areas. But that's very doable. You own the land, you have the land already, you don't have to go find the land. And those areas have typically been very consistent in population. And if you look on the map, and I did try this one on Google Map. Where's my cursor? Oh, that was not moving. The two dots right there, represent where Hearn is and where Wells are. So that is not far apart and so the assignment areas are not gonna change a whole lot. And that's one where you could talk to the commissioners about needing a new elementary school, because that would be, you've got, that's Hearn's footprint now, very tight on that lot, but Wells, you've got an older building with really only about 10,000 square feet of new space. That in that box is the new part of Wells. So that's a possibility. And again, you've got consistent population through there and attendance. Actually, we're seeing an uptick at some spots. But, you can't combine them like you can with some schools, nor would you want to with the class size requirements and everything else. There's no way to hold it. But that one is right there in town, and they're close to each other.
So would the process be the same as with Frederick Douglass of once a decision is made, where would you, hopefully Frederick Douglass students would be moved, and would you use Hearn again as, not Hearn, Toys Not again as a staging area for those students, tear down the building on the well site and then put a new building there?
I don't know that you'd have to do like we're having to do for Frederick Douglass. I think there's some, and again, that's outside my pay grade, but initial conversations when we were looking at this, it may be that you could start construction in some aspects and not have to have them attend Toys Not right then or right away. But again, I've not gone any further than that because there's no point in exploring all that till the board says, I'm okay with this, or, mm-mm.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
It seemed like the last facilities meeting that we had, it seemed like most everybody was pretty much on board with the Hearn wells.
Combination.
And the only, the main question was, where would the students be during the process? And I think y'all were gonna get back with us on that.
Yeah, there's,
He's back.
yeah, I'm back. If you don't go right into it, then there's some things we can do to get started, but, I guess the question is this gonna be your second elementary school? That's really what I want to know for us to proceed, and then we can come back with some scenarios, because you've got some space, but I don't know what the rules are. That's not my forte about where and when and how, but certainly want everybody to be safe and comfortable as we do it. But I think that's a lot more manageable than some of the other stuff we've seen, because, Frederick Douglass, there was nowhere to put anything, and that site needs a lot of prep work.
Well, as far as this proposal is concerned, I really like this proposal. And I would like to see this proposal on the next Needs More Space grant that we put out, rather than applying a third time for Frederick Douglass. And I think this gives us a lot of options
Okay.
with the Margaret Hearn facility down the road also.
Yep.
So
So would you,
I'm 100% on board with this one.
so we can come back with some more detailed information right away, but I'm hearing that this is okay among the five of you?
It's with me.
Okay. All right. And then, since we're on a roll, I'm gonna go ahead and throw you a huge curve. And let me just show you one last possibility that could be part of a discussion. And just hear me out. Just let me just conversation, okay? So you could also look at expanding Barnes and to allow the VIC assignment area to go into Barnes. We've just renovated part of Barnes already, which is beautiful. And I can share pictures of that at a later time, because then I've got those ready for you in presentation. That school site allows for expansion in a more of a logical fashion, if you think about it. And here's the kicker: Barnes site has got 30 acres, according to GIS. And Vic, you are landlocked. And we need to do some things at Vic. And if we're gonna spend the money on that, perhaps it might be better to spend it on upgrades for an entire campus, since we already have little ways there on Barnes. So, let me show you from a map standpoint. and y'all know this, but the red dot where the food line cart is to the right is the end of Lipscomb and, is, Barnes. And right there where it says McDonald's and it's got the red flag, that's Vic. That's how close those catchment areas are. Again, I can't get to the school attendance lines right now because they're not up on the site for GIS, but this is not so much an assignment issue as it is what we need to do for our buildings issues. The assignment piece is catchment areas, you know, you're not talking about distance, but Vic needs significant upgrades and fixing up to do right. And you've already done partial work at Barnes on a campus that can be expanded. So I think that's a discussion the board really needs to have.
Excuse me, do I remember from the past talking about the property at Barnes, does it go all the way to Lipscomb down at that intersection, or because someone wanted to use the property or get it
I
or
didn't do the
something?
GIS down on it now. You can do that. It's right at it, I think, if not just
I was
right
just-
right at the
I was
corner,
just-
there's a little wedge. But it actually almost makes like an L shape, because it goes up towards 301 and then the boot, the toe part end of it was up that way. So it's a really, you've got that land up there too, but you've got land behind and where we expanded on the kindergarten side and up there. And that's a much newer building, and I just think that's something y'all really need to talk about because Vic needs significant upgrades. And again, it's landlocked. You don't have anywhere to go. And Barnes is right. I mean, it's the same assignment areas. I think you really need to talk about that.
Can we get the land mapping before because I'm trying to visualize
Yeah, I can-
32 acres from that site, and I know that there's over on,
It's a big
Lipscomb.
footprint, but yeah, I will do it and pull it
you've
up on
got Hattie
GIS.
Daniels, you've
Mhm.
got, there's a couple of houses before you even get to those apartments, and I'm not able to see in my head right now 32 acres for that site.
And maybe I read it wrong. So it-
30.62.
yeah, so I was off
That's
2
still a
points.
lot. I still
Give-
can't
give-
visualize that
Give
30.62
me one
versus
second.
32, whatever.
Hold on, I'll completely nerd out and do this, but I found this part over here is really a pain, so I usually just, I've lived here long enough now to, and done enough of these maps, kind of know where, oh, I was right on it. Yeah. All right, so, and then information-wise, so there's the footprint. And information-wise is, you're the proud owners of a school.
Can you turn on the photography,
Yes.
please?
Come on, you ain't gonna throw me a bone on this one? I thought it was pretty
Turn
cool.
on the what?
Oh,
Which aerial would you like, Mr. Boykin? How
The
about
2021 would be great.
I did for you, smarty. So, your property goes all the way, there's that boot I was talking about. And it does, I'll go all the way to the corner except for the offset that's there, but that is a lot of ground for you to build on.
Because those are our trees right there, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's
okay,
yours.
So that's it.
All this little bit right through is all yours.
I was just wondering about if you're gonna reconfigure it, access, cause it's kind of awkward for, sometimes leaving the school and going
But you got
towards
all,
Green,
you got
out
all
of town
this,
from that parking lot.
and it's right in town.
But where those trees are is gonna be soggy.
And compared to Frederick Douglass,
Well,
I mean, let's
Touche.
be honest. I mean, you've all got site prep issues, but it's right in town, and you already own it.
And it's a good sized tract of land.
That's a big tract of land in the middle of town. And for comparison purposes,
I see a big parking lot and a bus lot out there on that food park.
get my bearings. Go. Completely lost.
Which school
You
you
need to go towards 301, right?
I thought he needed to go northeast.
See, y'all doing it too.
I just saw Pine Street, that's downtown.
There was Vance and Tar.
Are you looking for Vic?
Yep.
Yeah, Green
You're
dead
gonna have
ends
to go down to
into-
the right, or to the right more.
This is, lost my bearings because somebody put on photography.
Oh, I don't even want to hear that.
I don't know
These
why, I
stupid
don't know
pin
who
numbers.
suggested that.
These stupid pin numbers are killing me. And that zoomed and made it worse. Hold on. Hold on. Sometimes you just start over. I'm so lost. I'm like,
You're doing a
wait.
better
Meanwhile,
job than
back-
I was
Wait.
doing.
Meanwhile, back to the satellite.
Yeah. Y'all put me on the pressure to do all this stuff.
Come on, come on.
You're
Stop
doing
it.
well, I never would have done it.
I don't care. All right, so.
I think you're in Goldsboro now.
I think it's Fuquay. All right, there's Barnes, right here. All right, so, I'm right up here. Beverly driving like that won't help. Beverly, you can drive all you want, it won't move the mouse.
Right there on.
Right here? I was looking for parking lots and that just destroyed me. Right here?
That's it.
I kept looking at those parking lots, I'm like, I know it's not right. All right, so here
It's Vic.
is Vic. I mean, oh, don't do it. And so if you were to turn on the information, it's just this one lot right here. I'm gonna take this off forgive me, Mr. Boykin. What you talking about?
7.5?
7.8, 7.6886. I can't read it because I don't have these on. That might have helped with the stupid map too, but hey. And you're landlocked. You're completely landlocked. So, that's why I think that's worth taking a look at, because if you think about the catchment area, Simon area, there's Barnes, there's Vic. Yeah, now it stands like a sore thumb, right? A minute ago, couldn't find a thing. Stupid. All this is right through here. But that is a bunch of acreage you've got right down the road that will allow you to do lots of things. And here we're really hammered to try and do anything because you'd have to go up. And that's not gonna be good. You can't do it.
Why can't you go up?
Because the elevators, expense, and there's still no parking, there's still no lots for anything else. You're still stuck. Even if you went up for space, and that's very, very expensive, and then you got all the other requirements. I just don't think it's economical to do that.
Why not just leave it there?
You can, but you've also got a chance to upgrade a facility because that building needs a lot of upgrades. It's the right thing to do over time, but if you're gonna do that, you're upgrading a building that you have no ability to expand in the future for, whereas you could spend financing here, and that's what the commissioners are telling you. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just telling you that's what they're telling you. Because these are so close to each other, that was what makes it difficult.
That school
'Cause-
actually does pull in that community.
And these were built
Mhm.
and have been there, and then, population change and growth around it, so it's always the catch-up piece. It's just a conversation you need to have,
Yeah, just,
so.
I'm not in agreement with moving those kids to Barnes, that's just my opinion. I think that community needs that school there.
I
Which is a way
understand.
that we could do some type of upgrade, because I realize that school, you can't really expand it, because it is.
It's stuck.
Yeah, that was just something we could do to bring it up to standard, without having to just completely move the kids from across from that area, all the way across down 264 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Because I do see Barnes, there's more expansion you can do with Barnes, but
Mhm.
just looking at that community particularly, I just can't picture there not being students there.
Looks like me at tourist now.
Yeah, I just can't,
Well,
it's just me.
Well, that's part of the discussion process that we will have, and we still have to have that conversation with Hearn Wells.
mhm.
And
I
so
can bring that
so
information
we
back.
We have a lot of
And then,
discussing that we will have to do in regards. But the first is that Dr. Mills is gonna go have a conversation with county manager, gonna share the figures from Barnhill for Frederick Douglass. We'll show the A1, A2.
Mhm.
We already know that we're shifting the priority to 132 instead of 123. And what else are his directives from us in terms of proceeding? He's now shared with us more information with a possible combination of Wells Hearn for consideration, and we did start that at the last facilities meeting, that whole discussion of that piece. You all are in favor of that. That kind of addresses a second new school, which the county said that the commissioner said we could look at. And the recommendation is that we look at Wells Hearn combination rather than, if there's no decision yet with our needs-based funding request, but rather than make another run at that we would go with a Wells Hearn combination, new school construction. Is that correct?
That would be my suggestion.
I would like to do that versus the Frederick Douglass again, because that's been a couple times through.
Okay.
This time. I
So
got flair.
where are we now? We at a breaking point with facilities?
I'd like to stop while I'm ahead for
Okay.
today.
You've got enough of the same,
If that's okay, I got enough.
enough homework.
Yeah, we got through the biggest parts of what we need to get through. The rest is just for information. I do have some positive things to share, which I can do later with the renovations at Barnes and Leeward, which look really good. But I can tie this back in with some other things, but this is,
Well,
This
I've
is a good
seen both
start.
of them and they look great.
Well, will you tie those in at the next regular board
Sure,
meeting?
I can-
Or do we
can-
need a few minutes for you to just roll through those?
I can do that at the board meeting real quick and do that. Yeah,
All right.
this is giving me some information to go back and work on.
Okay, then, if we are finished with long-range facility planning for today's discussion, The next item on the agenda is calling for a closed session. So Mrs. Boyette,
I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 6, and 115C-319 through 321, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Second.
thank you. It has been moved by Mrs. Boyette, seconded by Mrs. Powell, that the board go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6, and 115C-319 through 321, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned to closed session.
Got paper in my mouth right now.
What are they getting there?
Well, those are good, thank you.
Jim waited it.
Help yourself. Oh,
His birthday's coming up 15th.
Yeah, I got one of them.
we have
Got
to
one of them
turn
too,
these
Jerry.
off, right?
Yes.
We turn these off?